Howdy, folks. This is Cody with GameCan.net.
And this is Laura.
We're just coming back to a little more Xenoblade Chronicles X talk. Last time I was, sort of down on the game, so I wanted to bring in somebody who had a more favorable opinion on the game, as well as once we get some talking in, I'll give an update. I've played considerably more since then. So I'm just going to give the floor to Laura right off the bat. Laura, tell us what you like about the game and compare just overall in comparison with the original Xenoblade, with the other Xeno games, just whatever you want to say.
Oh, I mean, overall, I think this game has been really good so far. I mean, I'm 48 hours in and only halfway through, which I expect from a Xeno game in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, just as far as I've played, I'm not even out of the first area, and we're, at 12 hours when we stopped just a minute ago?
About that, yeah.
So go ahead, sorry.
No, you're fine. I mean, but it's basically, I've been enjoying the experience immensely, even with all the countless deaths.
Oh yes, and they are countless.
Yes, I have to give music, meh, at best. But I think it does seem to fit fairly well for some of the areas, except for NLA. But that's another story entirely.
Speaking of LA, I was talking to him about this earlier. I looked it up online. In the last video I mentioned, I was really hoping it wasn't the same composer, and apparently it isn't. The composer for this is apparently the composer for Attack on Titan, which still confuses me because the music seemed more appropriate in that, but, whatever.
I mean, in a way, Attack on Titan and this do have some parallels.
I guess you have a point, but as
I know.
With all the Xeno games, they do tend to follow a certain formula, and I haven't gotten that far into this one. So Laura was telling me there are some surprises to come.
Yeah, like I told you earlier, I've actually been able to, based off of what I've seen so far, and again, I'm only halfway through, so this may change again, but I actually have a fairly solid idea of how all 6 of the Xeno games could actually be in the same universe, even though technically they're not.
Actually, go ahead and go into that. You were telling me that earlier, but just tell the folks.
Don't want to give spoilers is the thing, but...
Oh, yeah. Speaking of... Before we even go any farther, if you watched the last video and weren't ready for spoilers, I apologize. I didn't put a spoiler warning in the video, so spoiler warning, we're going to spoil. So feel free, Laura. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
All right. Well, basically...
No, we just got it. Never mind. I was going to say don't spoil for me, but yeah, just do it. Say what you got to say.
Basically, now, part of this is still conjecture, still because I haven't gotten this far yet. But if what I'm seeing is correct, the Lifehold core is probably the Zohar unit.
I was actually thinking that, I'm obviously not that far in the game, but the way they're talking about it and the way they're kind of, for lack of a better term, revering it, I kind of got that vibe off of it.
And, well, you'll find out the reason. I'm not going to tell you why it's so vital. It's not necessarily that it's the God unit, but it definitely holds the reason why could believe why the Zohar is so vital is so prevalent in all of the Xeno games.
Well, you were mentioning earlier just the kind of how you were connecting all of them, including the Xenogears and Xenosaga, in kind of a timeline. Just give a brief overview of that, if you would.
Sure. This game pretty much falls right at as the origin story.
Sorry, I'm already interrupting you, but the reason I was thinking this is because, again, spoilers. If you haven't beaten Xenoblade, at the very end, you find out that the previous universe was rebooted into the Xenoblade universe. So what I'm wondering is, wouldn't that put the other games at the beginning of the storyline? If you were assuming all of the games were tied.
Potentially yes and potentially no, based off because specifically you've discovered that all of the humans that you're dealing with are actually Mimizomes, which came into play in Xenogears. If you remember.
It's been a long time. I don't even remember. Like, you're saying that word, and it's like, what?
Basically, they're human-controlled puppets. Robots.
What? Well, in this?
Yeah.
Man.
So, like I said, I'm trying to be careful not to give you too much Cody, because I know you haven't really done it yet. But um,
But that's I don't remember that being in Xenogears. Like everybody,
not everybody, but references to that
like
because of
Esmeralda.
yes.
Oh, because I definitely remember Esmeralda was like that. Or I think her name was actually Emeralda, but you know what
Emerald,
I
yeah.
mean.
But then basically, there's two different ways I could go with this. If you remember the opening for Xenogears, that's that amazing anime opening that they had
Love
with
that
it.
opening. It was so good. Had fantastic music, very cinematic.
And then that actually would, to me, leads to them escaping Mira.
Yeah, you were saying that earlier that you believe that ship was escaping from Mira.
And then, yes, I know Xenoblade Chronicles technically reboots anything that happened beforehand, but Xenosaga seems to fall into place, like, even with the Xenosaga setup, it still seems to fall into place like Chronicles X, Gears, the Xenosaga series, then Chronicles.
So actually, since we're on the subject of Xenosaga, as you know, and as I've explained to anyone who's watched the first video, I pretty much only saw about the first 10 hours of the first of the three Xenosaga games. If you don't mind, maybe like give a back of the box description of the main plot of Xenosaga.
Xenosaga, Zohar has been recovered, of course, and then you have all the Gnosis, which are these other planar creatures coming through to
I
our
do
plane.
remember that.
Anything on our side that they touch, they turn to dust, essentially.
But like with the religious implications of Xenogears, I'm wondering what are the ties, if any.
Well, with Xenosaga, supposedly
That's
Cosmos,
Cosmos was Christ, if I remember
and
hearing that correctly.
Cosmos contained the body of Mary Magdalene, and Chaos contained the body of Christ.
That's right. I had them mixed up.
It was very Nietzsche-esque for those three games compared to the others, but that was the whole point because they even said Nietzsche was the primary source with them for their ideas. And the Zohar, I mean, technically Nietzsche's influence can be seen in every single game because of the Zohar. Even the Monado has the same similar type of effect. So it's just one of those things based off of, because, and the reason why I say this would be the Xenoblade Chronicles would be the end of this universe, or be the end of the last game, specifically deals with the fact that there is no Zohar, as far as I remember.
I don't remember a Zohar.
You just had the Monado.
Yeah.
And again, I haven't gotten to the end of this one, X, yet, but if I am understanding correctly, the Monado won't even appear in here.
Well, that would make sense.
The Zohar will appear, though.
That also makes sense.
It's one of those, well, probably won't be called the Zohar, but,
Well, anyway, we've done a lot of speculating about, the story. Go back to specifically Xenoblade Chronicles X and just give more opinion on it. Like, as you know, I was kind of down on it at first. I still am nowhere near as happy so far as you, but I've definitely gained a little more appreciation since the original video.
And once you get into the game, I think you'll get, we just finished chapter 4, essentially.
Yeah, we basically did exploring and fighting for like the last, well, he and I for the last several hours, and I was doing it for a few hours before he even got here. And as I mentioned in the first video, those are my two favorite aspects of the game. So as I did more of that, I was definitely liking it more.
Yeah, I mean, and you're gonna find even more so, especially once you get to Oblivia and all like that. Just every continent is unique in every aspect. Like you get to Sylvalum, and it's like, what on earth?
So just in keeping on this game, who's your favorite character so far and why?
So far, I have to say Hope.
Which is one I haven't seen yet.
You have not unlocked her yet, but the reason why is because she comes out of the box with some excellent healing skills, which, like, she actually has direct heals, not just the soul voices. And she is probably one of the most durable characters that I've seen so far.
Not to totally derail you, but my mind just made a connection with something you just said earlier. So if these are the robotic humans, that means Earth originated with robotic humans.
No.
No. Okay, so that's the plot thing. Don't spoil it then.
I'm not gonna. That's why I said I'm not gonna spoil it. That's why I don't. I have to be careful with what I say.
Well, I was just gonna say that means it's like in Battlestar Galactica, the reboot series ends with humans and Cylons hybriding and forming what we know as the human race. I was gonna go, maybe it's all connected to Battlestar Galactica, since that's religious too.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised with things, especially if Attack on Titan, the Attack on Titan composer is involved with this.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised
Well,
if
I'm
they
sure it's
weren't.
actually not, but it's just the parallels were
But that would also explain why the Ganglion had been hunting them.
kind of like the Cylons hunting the humans.
Exactly.
Huh? Yeah.
So, but we'll find out more.
In the last since I've gotten into the reboot Battlestar Galactica, I've seen a lot of shows and movies, including things I saw before, that really were influenced probably by the original series, not so much the new series since they share the same plot. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about Xenoblade, not Battlestar.
Can't help that one. Sorry.
Name your favorite aspect about this game in particular. Just anything.
Honestly, there's not really. I can't have a favorite for me right now because there's so
Well, how about
many.
this? What's something that's original to this game that wasn't in Chronicles 1
The
that's
scales,
better? Oh, yeah.
the gears,
That's true, the gears.
and the moment you unlock gears, the entire game changes. So that's all I can say on that part. Is because it's one of those you literally. It's like, how did I get by without this?
Well, I can definitely see that. I've definitely had the death-itis going on.
Oh, you still have plenty of deathitis. And someone like you who's horrible with quick time events, keep the scales on your other characters, not you, because if you can get a perfect, or if the skill gets destroyed for that quick time, it'll actually be towed back and repaired at no without taking one of your insurance slots or
I'll have to
or
keep
whatever.
that in mind. And for any of you who are also bad at quick time events, there's a tip from Lore. What's
Because the character, if your party members will always get a perfect.
Oh, right. I have these notes, and I'm not even looking at them. Um, Laura's talk while I'm looking at these notes, so we're not leaving dead air. Just go on about the game for a bit.
Honestly, overall, like especially once I unlocked the scale, I was just like, oh my goodness, how did I've been exploring and exploring. I haven't even started chapter 7 yet because of all the exploring that's opened up for me, and the many more deaths.
So, just now that I've gone over the list of things I wrote down while I was playing and while you were playing a little bit, a new complaint I have about the game. This isn't that huge, but I've been playing with the controller, like the Pro controller, I guess it's technically called, and I didn't realize this at first, but you can't use the map function or the fast travel apparently unless you're using the Wii U gamepad.
Correct.
So I've now using both, but I thought that was a little weird. You think they would have made it so you could? I mean, it's minor complaint. Really.
I've done both, but I actually just prefer to just use the gamepad
I
myself.
can see why. But the short battery life is what turned me away from that.
Well,
Another thing. Oh, go ahead.
with
Sorry.
my setup, I have my cord plugged out. I know your setup doesn't allow for that, but
Yeah, I
mine
kind
lets
of
me have
got a
the cord.
static setup for my modern systems that if I start taking it apart, it becomes a hassle to put it back.
Yeah, especially
Another
since you have the different cord.
Another thing we both, at least somewhat agreed on, was the sound options, or lack thereof.
Yeah, I mean it's not that hard to put a voice control and a music control and a background and a sound effects control slider options.
Almost every game has them,
Yeah.
and there's been a few instances where I've heard the music basically drowning out the conversation, which
Exactly.
in a particularly story-heavy or character-driven scene, that could be detrimental.
Yeah.
Or if you just don't like the music, like me, you could just want to turn it down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I've cured this by muting it and playing Xenogears and Xenoblade music or podcasts in the background. But when you actually want to pay attention to what's going on, that's not a very good option.
And especially when you're in ULA and you have dialogue scenes and all of that horrible trash.
And that
Oh.
garbage music. Hey, hey.
This is one game where you definitely need to have subtitles on.
And actually, that's another one of my notes here. Sort of, anyway. It goes from there. The farther I get away from New LA, the more I like the game.
And I can
So
understand that.
I think really. Oh, and I told you earlier there was something I wanted to tell you, but I didn't want to say it till we're recording. This, I mentioned in the last video, but in retrospect, anyway, This game, I was about 4 or 5 hours in, and I was miserable. And I think that really skewed everything for me because, as you said, and as just from me and you playing now,
Hmm.
I've definitely liked the game more. One of the reasons I was so down on it, 10 minutes into Xenoblade Chronicles, the original, I knew I was in love with the game. That prologue was so epic.
Hmm.
And
I
just
won't deny
back
that.
to that opening movie from Xenogears, same
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
And that's only like a 4 minute cutscene.
And then it feeds right into
Exactly.
directly into the game, not just.
I won't deny that the cutscene at the beginning of this one
Hmm.
was good, but it didn't wasn't as good as either of those. And once you get out of that, it's very slow paced until actually about where we are now. It's
Yeah.
starting to pick up,
Until
and
you
we're
get to chapter 4.
minimum 10 hours in,
Hmm.
probably closer to 12 or 13.
You're about as far in as you got with Final Fantasy 10 or 13.
No, I was gonna say I've beat Final Fantasy X. Just
Mm.
quick aside, um, I'm sure anybody who's been on this site or watched any of my videos has heard me complain about Final Fantasy X. I hate Final Fantasy X, but I beat it specifically because I didn't want people to say, "Well, you just didn't understand it because you didn't beat it, you didn't play it all the way." So I was like, "Screw you!" So I beat it out of spite. And this day and age, I can't handle that
I should.
anymore.
I meant to say 13. So.
I know, but I was just explaining with Final Fantasy X because
Yeah.
I with Final Fantasy 13, I got about 9 hours in before I realized I absolutely hated the game and never picked it up again. I'm just too old, not to disclose our ages. We're similar ages. I'm too old to
Mhm.
play games I don't like anymore, and
I
that's
agree.
one of the reasons I was.
We're also too busy. It's called adulting.
Yeah, with work, we both work. We both have plenty of other things to do. And when
Hmm.
we have video game time, we generally want to play games we like.
Exactly.
Or if we're going to play games we don't like, it's for a reason.
Hmm.
But as I said before, I am definitely starting to like this game a little more. I'm not loving it yet, but
I think that'll change once you get past chapter 5.
I hope so, since I bought 2 copies of this game.
That's your own fault for that one.
I know, but that's another reason I was kind of like, oh my god, I bought 2 copies of this game and it's garbage.
No, it's definitely not garbage. Now, is it as good as Xenoblade Chronicles?
I would say it's not as good as
Well,
Xenogears as well, at least at
well,
this point.
for me, because I have to take each game individually.
Fair enough.
And yes, it is as good as in its own right. Now, as a sequel or a prequel to Xenoblade Chronicles, no. But in its own right, taking it as its own game, I think it's an excellent game. The
I've
combat,
seen that a lot online because
it
I've been reading a lot of forums in the last week.
it's just the combat system is so much more in depth. All the different aspects of it, even more so than what you had from Chronicles. At least with with Chronicles, you had to hope that your healing spells were off or healing arts were off cooldown. If whereas with this one, the soul voices will heal you if you have them set up right. So
Well, my issue with this one was never the combat. I
yeah,
mean,
oh, I know. I'm just saying, but that's all I've seen complaints about the combat like that being derivative or this that, and the other. It's like
well, it's literally got Xenoblade Chronicles in the name. I would hope it
Mhm.
would at bare minimum be derivative.
Agreed. I don't, in my opinion, it actually improved on it a whole lot. But then you also see people complaining about the fact that it's an open world as opposed to a linear story. I actually like the way the story is presented here because when you do it forces you to do the side quests, which you didn't have to do with Xenoblade Chronicles.
No, you didn't, but it was severely to your words again are hard.
It was
I
to your
did
advantage.
all of those, and I got nothing but benefit from them.
Yeah, but you weren't required to like
Yeah,
that.
no, you weren't.
This one, I'm glad that they actually require you to do part of them at least, especially the affinity missions, where you actually unlock new characters and you get their skills when you do more of the affinities.
So I've read at least that with the affinity missions in this, despite the fact a lot of them are optional, that you actually don't want to skip them because you almost get as much story from them
Yep.
as you do the main story.
Because this game is all about the characters and the interactions. It's not about the world itself because the characters are how do we adapt to this hostile new world with this alien menace still trying to hunt us to extinction. How do we deal with all this? And
Speaking
it's
of
humanity
dealing,
come together.
speaking of dealing with this hostile new world, I gotta say, I know from what I've read online, a lot of people hate Tatsu or Tatsu, however you
Hmm.
pronounce that. But I think it's fantastic that this guy comes in, this little I forget what the Nopons, the
Nopon.
Rikis, and he's trolling Lynn pretty much. And to be fair, Lynn's trolling him back, but it's just anyone who listened to the first video knows I don't like Lynn, so this was just fantastic. I was loving it. I don't see how people can dislike him. I mean, I can. As I mentioned in the last video, I'm notoriously not a fan of mascot characters, but for some reason I like Nopons, and I think it's entirely because of Riki.
Well, Riki wasn't your stereotypical token. He was the token mascot character, token mascot, but he was actually useful.
Yeah,
But then again, going back to Xenogears, I'm probably the only person in the world who liked Choo Choo because she actually was. If you had
yes, you were.
if you had the Choo Choo gear, she was literally invincible, and she was the only character that didn't use fuel in gear mode, and her heal restored the fuel as well.
No.
So literally, she would only ever take 1 damage from any attack.
One of the things I mentioned in the last video, and one of the reasons I dislike most mascot characters, I would actually say all, but Riki's the exception, and I guess maybe that proves the rule, is that with the mascot characters, it's like the creators know they're annoying and that most people are not going to like them. So they make them either super powerful or give them a unique ability that you absolutely need, or at least will get something super great with.
Yeah.
Because they know most people are not going to play them willingly. So they put that in as like, here, play with them, or to reward the people who do play with them.
I have to agree with that, honestly. But in the case, for me, it's like, I'm fine with that for a lot of those things, because I actually do tend to like the mascot characters more than others. Remember, I like Mog from 6.
Well, Mog is an exception for me. Mog.
Toneberries, which are the mascot characters when it comes to Chocobo Dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
well, they're also sort of mascot. I mean, you don't really get to play as them, but
they're the minion
Final
type.
Fantasy is kind of an exception because there are so many different mascots in Final Fantasy.
True.
But let me see what else we got here. There's got to be a better way. There's an option in the game where I think it's when you first meet Tetsu, and he's giving you the follow ball, I think it's called, or something ridiculous like that.
Ball.
And one of the options is there has got to be a better way. I laugh at this because this is what all the people on the infomercials say. It's like, are you tired of spilling milk when your child drops the cup? There's got to be a better way. Yeah, I laughed at that. I won't even lie.
Well, the Nopon are merchants. That's the whole point, especially when you meet Mamapon.
I'm assuming that's from this one.
Yeah.
Because I definitely haven't gotten that far yet. Another thing.
You cannot not meet Mamapon, trust me.
Lynn, when you first run across the prone base, she's like, that doesn't look natural. It's like, you're the girl who loves gears, lives in this giant city, and you say, it doesn't look natural when you see an obvious intelligent creature built fortress in the middle of what you thought was a wildland. I just thought that was that's probably more in the translation than anything, but it seemed like, well, no, duh, that's not natural.
But Lynn seems to also be the character she'll overstate the obvious.
That is true. Well, I think that about kills mine.
That sounds wonderful, or that sounds great.
I do have another note here. This is actually a correction from the first video. In the first video, I mentioned that Xenogears was originally supposed to be 6 games, and that Xenogears was the 5th. That's actually... No, wow. I said it was supposed to be 7. That was incorrect. It is actually supposed to be 6. I just wanted to correct that because, that was wrong information. It's been a long time since I played it. I was very tired the day I made that video. Anyway, that's just a correction.
Technically, that was never even mentioned. That was always just what they talked about after the fact, after they were talking about how bad Square screwed them over with
that. Wasn't in the game, but that became common knowledge to fans of the game after the game's release.
Mm-hmm. Which, honestly, now that we do have 6 Xeno games, yes, I know technically they don't correlate.
They're not all that storyline, though.
But they, like I said, they do. If once you play farther on, you'll be like, "Oh wow, okay, so this is definitely a possibility."
Wouldn't that be weird though? If they go, "Surprise, this is
them."
Exactly.
But then that would mean that Xenosaga. That would mean Xenosaga 2 would be in there.
Oh, let's not say that. But that would also mean Xenogears is the 5th games, if assuming they followed because Xenogears was supposed to be number 5.
True. Which would put this in the Xenosaga games.
I don't think this is the case, though, because there's so much in Xenogears that is not carried over to any of
to
them.
Xenoblade or anything else. So
So it just seems unlikely. I think they're just continually rebooting the series. One
yeah,
last
'cause
thing.
in all honesty, it would have been Xenogears would either have to be the second game to here, or it would have. Well, no, it could fall into this fifth if you figure Chronicles being the sixth. Because even though they're not Mira,
Where would that planet with the giant robot or the giants come from? I guess they technically were robots, but
yeah, but then that would be still.
well, that would be the reboot universe, so I guess
Yeah.
that would be why. But Lore showed me something when we were playing earlier. There was this lake that he jumped into, and there was this what looked like a giant ruined gear in the middle of it, and he swam towards it, and I was like, that kind of looks like Weltall. But what he was setting me up for, and I didn't realize, was that thing was going to come to life and ruin the crap out of the party. I jumped. It shocked me. That was a pretty good jump scare. And it probably was, I mean, it was intended to scare you, but, it's
Yeah.
not a jump scare in how people normally use the word.
But
that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, because you just start run. It's like, oh no, run, 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 run. Because that was definitely when I first saw it. I was like, oh my.
Yeah, that's pretty much the reaction I had. And that's what he wanted out of me, and he got it. So he was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you figure I had also just escaped from level 12, level 13. No, that was level 15 characters at that point, and I had just escaped from level 35 P hats, the mortifolios that popped up on the edge where I jumped from.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had taken the edge around because I had seen collectibles. So I was going to go pick it up. Trap.
Yeah, definite. Well, that's
just like when I showed you the trap in the rock cave.
the rock. What was it?
Rock cavern.
No, but what was the new guy L saying?
Oh.
Ass caves.
Oh yeah.
Ass caves. That's
L is probably from what I've seen. L is definitely one of the favorite characters, and I can understand. And he's
I
one
definitely
of mine
like
too.
L. He's one of my complaints early on was the characters. So far, L is definitely moving that in another direction for me. I like L a lot.
Yeah, and then you'll find. I can already tell you're gonna hate Fry. Fog will drive
Philip
you.
J. Fry?
No, if only. Fog, you're gonna probably be like. You'll want to slap him because he's gonna remind you probably of Psycho.
Well, Psycho's a friend of ours.
Yeah.
For people who are listening who've never heard us refer to that. Well, what's his name? HD, was that his name?
HB.
HB. He was a total douchebag, but once we actually got him on the party, I actually really like him.
He's a great character in there. He survived. He's a better shield trooper than Lynn.
Well, anyone's better than Lynn.
Although L's even better than both of them.
I apologize if you hear noise in the background. My cat's crying, so I was trying to pacify her. But is there anything else you'd like to add, Lee? Any notes, thoughts about this or any of the other Xeno games? Or anything related?
Honestly, just, you have to get past the first 3 chapters. I have to say that, and, I know your rule is you won't usually give it past that, but the 5-hour mark normally, so I'm glad you've gone farther this time, but...
It is a Xeno game, and despite the fact that I did get to the 5-hour mark and didn't like it, I wasn't just going to give up on it because it is a Xeno game. I gave Xenosaga 10 hours, and I hate Xenosaga, so...
Yeah. But, I didn't mind Xenosaga. Yes, it wasn't great, but it definitely wasn't 2.
But it definitely wasn't 2. I actually...
It's kind of sad that we have to refer to the games like that, though.
Yeah, I actually made the mention of that when I was in the last video. I was saying how you liked the Xenosaga games, but except for 2. But anyway, unless you have anything else, I think we'll just wrap it up here.
No, I think I'm good.
I'll probably make continued reports as I keep playing, but I wanted to get Lauren for a happier, more optimistic view of the game, as well as I do a little bit better talking back and forth with somebody. So
something like this, especially because you can argue too. Then.
Oh, we weren't really arguing. Even when we were arguing, we weren't arguing.
True.
Just difference of opinions. Anyway, thanks for listening. Don't forget to visit us at gamecan.net. And don't forget, you can well your tall, but please don't Yazgradil.